Guys, you see this girl called Osita? She lied about everything, her mansion, her rich father, even her perfect life. But the day her mother showed up at school, the truth exploded in front of everyone. Long ago, in a lively town where red dust danced with the wind and mango trees bowed over narrow roads, there lived a girl named Osita. She was clever, bright eyed, and quick with voice, the kind of child who would make a whole class laugh just by raising an eyebrow. But behind her laughter lived a secret heavier than a sack of yam. Osita lived with her mother in a tiny one-room house at the edge of the market. The roof leaked when it rained, and walls carried stories of many seasons. Her father had died when she was very young, leaving only an old photograph and stories her mother told her at night. Stories of a kind man who had dreamed big dreams but left too soon. Her mother, known around town as Mama Osita, woke before the roasters each morning. She fried hot akara by the roadside, the smell of beans and pepper floating through the air like an invitation. Her hands were rough from years of work, but her smile was soft and patient. Osita, however, did not see the beauty in her mother's strength. She saw only what others might say. At school, everything was different. Her classmates arrived in shiny cars. Their lunchboxes smelled of foreign snacks and fancy juice. Two girls in particular, Nkechi and Sopruchi, were from wealthy families. They wore sparkling shoes and spoke of vacations, birthday parties, and big houses with staircases that coiled like royal crowns. Osita wanted to belong. At first, she listened quietly. But one day, while the girls compared stories about their homes, something hot and uncomfortable rose in her chest. My father, Osita said casually, has a private jet. The table went silent. A private what? Sopruchi gasped. Osita repeated confidently, you know, for traveling, we fly whenever we want. Nkechi's eyes widened. Really? Osita nodded slowly, as if it were the most ordinary thing in the world. From that moment, the lies began to grow. She spoke of a huge house with marble floors that made slippers slide. She described the swimming pool so big even a fish could get lost in it. She invented a street wealthy father who did not like visitors and a beautiful rich mother who wore gold bracelets and perfumes from abroad. Each lie made her feel taller. Each nod of admiration wrapped around her like a warm blanket. And soon, everyone believed her. After school, while groups of children walked home laughing together, Osita always slipped away alone. Instead of taking the short road home, she walked the longest route, passing three streets, two churches, and one stubborn goat that always blocked the road. By the time she reached her neighborhood, the sun would already lean towards evening. She did it for one reason. She didn't want anyone to see where she lived. Most of all, she didn't want anyone to see her mother selling akara by the roadside, fanning the hot oil with tired hands. Sometimes, Mama Osita would wave happily as her daughter passed. Osita, my child, come and eat while it's hot. Osita would pretend not to hear. If her friends ever came close, she would quickly turn away. Mama, she whispered one evening, her voice sharp with embarrassment. Please, don't ever come to my school. Ever. Mama Osita paused as her smile fading slightly. Why, my child? It's just not necessary. Osita muttered. Everyone's parents are busy people. Her mother looked at her carefully, as if trying to read a story written behind her eyes, but she simply nodded. All right, she said softly. Weeks passed. Osita became famous in class for her stories. She spoke about vacations that never happened and gifts she never received. Sometimes she invented arguments with her street father just to make the stories feel real. Nkechi and Sopuruchi admired her even more. They invited each other for sleepovers often. Big houses filled with games, snacks, and laughter late into the night. Osita, when are we coming to your house? Nkechi asked one day excitedly. Osita didn't exist. My father doesn't allow sleepovers, she said with a dramatic sigh. He says rich families must be careful. The girls nodded respectfully. Your father sounds serious, Sopuruchi said. Osita smiled, relieved. If only they knew. Meanwhile, Mama Osita watched her daughter changing. A girl who once sat beside her eating akara with joy now claimed she didn't like it. The girl who used to laugh freely now worried constantly about how her uniform looked or who was watching her. Sometimes Mama Osita tried to talk. My child, she said gently, you don't need to pretend to be anything. But Osita brushed her off. Mama, you don't understand, she replied. And perhaps Mama Osita understood more than she let on. One hot afternoon, as the school bell rang loudly across the compound, a notice was announced. Compulsory PTA meeting next week, the teacher said firmly. Every parent must attend. Families who do not will pay a fine. Murmurs filled the room. Osita's heart dropped like a stone into a deep river. That evening, she told her mother quickly, almost carelessly. There is a meeting, she said, but don't come, please. Mama Osita looked surprised. But they said it is compulsory. I said don't come. Osita snapped. They don't mind. Her mother remained quiet, turning akara in hot oil. At school, Osita already had a plan. My parents won't come, she told her friends proudly. They are traveling to London for vacation, obviously. Again, Nkechi laughed. Osita shrugged. You know it now. Everyone admired her as usual. But somewhere beyond the classroom walls, Fate was already walking towards her, carrying a tray of freshly fried akara and a cold zobo. And very soon, the truth she had buried would begin to rise. The PTA meeting arrived, wrapped in bright sunshine and nervous energy. Parents filled the school grounds, some stepping out of polished cars, while others walking proudly in elegant clothes, carrying folders and phones. The air buzzed with greetings, laughter, and the smell of perfume mixed with dust. Inside the classroom, Osita sat between Nkechi and Sopruchi, pretending to be relaxed, but her fingers kept twisting the edge of her uniform. Your parents really went to London? Sopruchi asked. Osita nodded confidently. Yes, my dad had business meetings, important people things. Nkechi sighed dramatically. Must be nice. My dad just came back from Abuja last night and he's already complaining about traffic. The girls laughed and Osita forced herself to join them. Across town, Mama Osita stood before her small mirror, adjusting her small, simple wrapper. She didn't own fancy clothes, but she folded her scarf neatly and wiped her sandal clean. In her hand, she carried a tray covered with cloths. Hot akara wrapped carefully, still steaming, and a bottle of homemade zobo. She remembered her daughter's words, don't come. But she also remembered the teacher's warnings about fines. Money was tight, every coin mattered, and in her heart, she hoped maybe, just maybe, her daughter would smile if she saw her. She loves akara, Mama Osita whispered to herself. Maybe she will be happy. With that hope, she began to walk to school. The PTA meeting went no longer than expected. Teachers spoke about homework, discipline, and exam preparations. Parents nodded, asked questions, and signed papers. Osita sat quietly, pretending not to care. Every time someone entered the hall, her heart jumped. Please don't come, Mama. Please don't come. The meeting finally ended. Students rushed out happily as parents gathered their things. Osita relaxed slightly. Maybe her mother really hadn't come after all. Then she heard a familiar voice outside the classroom. Excuse me, please. Where is Osita's class? The voice was gentle, warm, terribly familiar. Osita froze. Mama Osita stepped into the classroom doorway with a shy smile. The tray in her hands released a delicious aroma that filled the room instantly. My child, she called softly, spotting Osita. I brought your favorite akara and zobo. Time passed. Nkechi blinked. Soprichi looked confused. Several classmates turned to stare. Osita's face drained of color. For a moment, she wanted to run into her mother's arms, to hide, to explain, to make everything disappear. But her fear spoke faster than love. Who are you? Osita said loudly. The room felt silent. Mama Osita paused, her smile trembling. My child, it's me, Mama. Osita's voice rose sharper now. Why are you calling me your child? You are, you are our maid. Gaps spread across the class, like fire catching dry grass. Nkechi whispered, I thought your parents were in London. So Pretty frowned. Wait, who is she then? Osita felt trapped. She doubled down. She works for us, she said quickly, forcing a laugh. She doesn't understand boundaries. Someone giggled. Another laughed loudly. The laughter grew. Mama Osita stood completely still. Her eyes moved from one child to the other. Then back to her daughter. The tray in her hand shook slightly. I, I brought your food, she said softly. Osita glanced at the akara and made a face. I don't even eat akara, she said loudly. More laughter erupted. It bounced off the classroom walls, loud and careless, like stones thrown without thought. Mama Osita's lips parted, but no words came out. Her eyes glistered, yet she forced a small nod. I see, she whispered. She turned slowly and walked away, her steps heavy. The once hot akara suddenly feeling like a burden. The room continued buzzing with whispers long after she left. That evening, Osita walked home slowly than usual. The long route no longer helped. Shame followed her like a shadow. When she entered the room, she found her mother quietly sorting beans, the tray now empty beside her. The silence felt louder than any. Mama, Osita began, tears already forming. I am sorry, I didn't mean it. Her voice sounded sincere, even to herself, but deep down she knew the apology wasn't complete. She was sorry because she had been embarrassed, not because she understood the hurt she had caused. Mama Osita said nothing. She simply nodded once and continued sorting. That silence stung more than scolding would have. The next day at school, Osita pretended everything was normal. She laughed loudly, she told new stories, she insisted that the woman who came yesterday really was a worker from her house. Some classmates believed her, some did not. One person watched quietly, a girl named Zimchi, known for noticing things others ignored. Zimchi folded her arms and narrowed her eyes. Something doesn't add up, she murmured. Days passed and the incident seemed to fade, but suspicion lingered. One afternoon, as students left school, Zimchi followed Osita from a distance. She hid behind parked cars and market stalls, careful not to be seen. Osita took her usual long route, looking over her shoulders carefully. Finally, she reached a small roadside store where Mama Osita was frying akara. Before Zimchi could think, she saw Osita run forward, drop her bag, and hug the woman tightly. Mama, I am home. The words were clear, real. Zimchi's eyes widened. She quickly raised her phone and recorded everything, the hug, the laughter, the tiny house beside them. Her suspicion had turned into proof, and with a quick tap, she sent the video to the class group chat. That night, phones across the class lit up. Messages poured in. What? She lied? That woman is her mom? No way. But Osita did not have a phone. She slept peacefully, unaware that her carefully built world was collapsing one message at a time. The next morning would bring a storm she had never imagined, and for the first time, Osita would stand face to face with the truth she had been running from. Morning came quietly, but the air around the school felt strange, heavy, expectant, like the moment before rain finally breaks from the clouds. Osita skipped into class with forced confidence, humming softly as if nothing in the world could trouble her. She adjusted her uniform, greeted a few classmates, and prepared to sit beside Nneka and Sopruchi, as usual. But something was wrong. The seats beside her were empty. Her best friends avoided her eyes. Whispers fluttered through the room like restless birds. She laughed nervously. Why is everyone looking at me like that? No one answered. Across the room, phones glowed under desks. Faces shifted between pity, anger, and disbelief. Some students shook their heads, others stared openly. Osita frowned. Did I miss anything? Just then, Zimchi stood up slowly, arms crossed, her expression firm. Maybe you should tell us the truth today, she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. The room fell silent. Osita forced a smile. What truth? Zimchi walked closer. About your father, your mansion, your pool, your private jet. A few students laughed bitterly. Osita's smile cracked. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, Zimchi replied. Then maybe this will help your memory. She held up her phone. The video began to play. There was Osita, clear as daylight, hugging Mama Osita by the akara stand, smiling warmly, calling her Mama. The class gasped. Some looked shocked, others angry. Nkechi's eyes filled with confusion. Soporichu looked hot more than anything. Osita's breath caught in her throat. For a moment, the room spun. Is that your house? Someone asked. Why did you lie? Another voice called out. Nkechi stood up slowly. So the woman at school, she is really your mother? Osita opened her mouth, but no words came out. She wanted to deny it. She wanted to invent another story, but the video kept playing in her mind, loud and undeniable. Zimchi's voice cut through silence. You denied your own mother, she said sharply. In front of everyone. You called her your maid? The words felt like stones hitting Osita's chest. She brought you food, someone added softly. And you said you don't eat akara, another whispered. The classroom filled with murmurs. You are a big liar. How could you do that? That's so mean. Osita felt heat rush to her face. Tears burned her eyes, but she forced herself to stand straight. I, she stammered. Her voice trembled. I thought, she swallowed hard. I thought if you knew I was poor, you wouldn't want me to be friends with you. Silence. The words hung in the air like smoke. Nkechi looked down. Sopruchi folded her arms, uncertain. Some classmates softened slightly, but others remained cold. You could have told us. You should have trusted us, Nkechi said. Sopruchi added, being poor isn't a crime. Lying is. Those words hurt more than shouting ever could. Osita could no longer hold back. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I was ashamed, she admitted, voice cracking. Everyone talks about big houses and trips. I didn't want to be different. I didn't want anyone to laugh at me. A small voice from the background muttered. Now everyone is laughing anyways. The class fell quiet again. Even Simchi looked slightly uncomfortable now, as if she didn't expect the moment to feel this heavy. The teacher entered just then, sensing the tension immediately. What is happening here? She asked. No one spoke. Osita quickly cleaned her face and sat down, her chest tight with humiliation. The rest of the day felt endless. No one passed her notes. No one asked to share lunch. The laughter that once followed her stories now happened far away, like she was behind invisible glass. At break time, she sat alone. For the first time in a long while, she thought about her mother, standing in that classroom, holding hot akara with hope in her eyes. She remembered the hurt on her mother's face. It hit her harder now than before. When the final bell rang, Osita walked home without taking the long route. There was no point hiding anymore. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange as she approached the roadside store. Mama Osita was there, always, fanning the hot oil, greeting customers with a tired smile. When she saw Osita, she smiled gently. You are home early today. That kindness broke something inside Osita. She dropped her bag and burst into tears. Mama, she cried, running forward and hugging her tightly. I am so sorry. I am so, so sorry. Mama Osita froze, then slowly wrapped her arms around her daughter. They stood together as the evening breeze moved slowly. I hurt you, Osita sobbed. I was ashamed. And I lied. Everyone knows now. They hate me. My child, she said softly. Truth may hurt at first, but lies hurt forever. Osita hugged her tightly. This time, her apology felt real, heavy, honest. That night, Osita lay awake, listening to the sounds of the market fading into silence. The walls felt smaller than ever, but somehow warmer too. She realized something for the first time. Her mother had never been the source of shame. The shame had come from pretending to be someone she wasn't. And tomorrow, she would have to face her classmates again. Not as the girl with private jets, but as simply Osita. Whether they accepted her or not, she didn't know. But the pretending was over, or so she hoped. The sky was clear the next day, yet Osita's heart felt heavy. She walked to school without rushing, without rehearsing new stories in her head. For the first time in a long while, she had nothing to pretend about. Her uniform was the same as always, but something inside her had changed. A quiet honesty that she could no longer ignore. As she reached the school gate, whispers began again. Some students glanced at her and looked away. Others stared openly. Osita kept walking. Her legs felt weak, but she refused to turn back. Inside the classroom, Nkechi and Sopruchi were already seated together. There was a small gap beside them, but no one invited her over. Osita hesitated, then chose a seat alone. The silence was uncomfortable, broken only by the scratching of pens and the teacher's voice. Every laugh in the room felt like it might be about her, even when it wasn't. At break time, she remained seated, staring at her desk. Then she heard footsteps. Nkechi stood beside her. You didn't bring lunch? She asked. Osita shook her head. Nkechi hesitated, then split her sandwich in half and placed a piece on Osita's table. Sopruchi joined them a moment later, arms folded. We were angry, Sopruchi said honestly. Not because you were poor, but because you lied to us. Osita swallowed hard. I know. Nkechi sighed. You should have trusted us. I was scared, Osita admitted. I thought if you knew the truth, you would stop liking me. Sopuruchi looked at her carefully. Friendship isn't about houses or money. It's about honesty. The words landed softly but firmly. It wasn't full forgiveness yet, but it was a beginning. After school, something unexpected happened. A younger student ran up to Osita shyly. Your mother sells the best akara. The girl smiled. My brother buys from her every morning. Osita blinked, surprised. Oh, thank you, she said softly. For the first time, she didn't feel embarrassed hearing those words. That evening, Osita walked straight to her mother's store. No hiding. The smell of frying akara greeted her like an old song she had forgotten she loved. Mama Osita looked up and smiled. Welcome back, my child. Osita smiled back, a real smile this time. Can I help you? She asked. Mama Osita raised an eyebrow. Help me? Osita nodded. She tied an apron around her waist and began handling customers paper wraps with hot akara. People laughed warmly. Ah, Mama Osita, your daughter is working now, one customer teased. Osita laughed too, surprising herself. Days turned into weeks. Slowly, the whispers at school faded. Some classmates remained distant, but others began talking to her again. Nkechi and Sopuruchi returned to sitting with her, not as admirers of imagined wealth, but as friends learning to trust again. Osita stopped telling stories about private jets and London vacations. Instead, she started talking about real things, funny things that happened at the market, her mother's secret recipe for zobo, and how she once burned akara by mistake and scared a customer away. People laughed, but this time the laughter felt warm and sharp. One afternoon, the teacher announced a storytelling competition. The theme, she said, is truth and character. Tell a story that teaches a lesson. Students groaned playfully. Osita froze. She knew exactly what story she wanted to tell. When her turn came, she stood before the class, hands trembling slightly. She spoke about a girl who wore borrowed dreams because she feared her own reality. A girl who believed wealth made people worthy of love. A girl who denied person who loved her most. The classroom grew quiet. No one laughed. By the time she finished, her voice was shaking, but her eyes were clear. The lesson, she said softly, is that a person who hides their roots cannot grow, and a child who is ashamed of love will always feel poor, no matter how much money they pretend to have. The teacher nodded slowly. Some students clapped. Even Simchi looked thoughtful, her expression softer than before. That evening, as the sun dipped low, Osita sat beside her mother outside their small house, sharing hot akara and cold zobo. She laughed suddenly. Mama, she said, I think akara really is my favorite food. Mama Osita chuckled. I knew it all along. They sat in comfortable silence. Osita looked at her mother's hands, scarred, strong, hardworking, and felt proud instead of shame. I am sorry, she whispered again. Mama Osita touched her cheek gently. My child, she said, a lie can hide the face, but it cannot change the heart. What matters is that you found your way back. From that day on, Osita walked home by the shortest road. Sometimes her friends even stopped by the store. They laughed, ate akara, and drank zobo together. The little roadside stand became a place of stories and friendship. And as the elders in the town like to say, the tree that forgets its root will fall in the first storm. Osita never forgot again. She learned that dignity does not come from wealth but from truth, and that the love of a mother, no matter how simple her life, is richer than any private jet, bigger than any mansion, and deeper than any swimming pool. And so the story of Osita became a lesson told to children whenever pride grew too large for honesty. Never deny where you come from, because your roots are the beginning of your strength. The end. Thank you for watching. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comment section.